Why are men's buttons on the right side and women's buttons on the left? It seems like such a tiny detail that nobody notices, until you try to put on someone else's shirt. Suddenly, your hands get all confused. It feels completely backwards. In reality, this tradition has a whole fascinating history behind it, from medieval knights and swords to maids and royal dresses. Today, we're diving into one of the oldest and most persistent clothing traditions in the world. It's not random, and it's not a designer's whim. This goes all the way back to at least the 13th or 14th century. Buttons first appeared in Europe around the 13th century and quickly became a luxury item for the wealthy. They were quite expensive. Before that, people tied, laced, or pinned their clothes shut. For men, the most widely accepted explanation is connected to weaponry. Most men were right-handed. They carried their sword or saber on the left side so they could draw it quickly with their right hand. If the jacket or coat overlapped from right to left, like modern women's clothing, the hilt of the sword would constantly catch on the edge. So they designed men's clothing so the left side overlaps the right with buttons on the right. This prevented snags and allowed for faster movement. This leftover right tradition for men became firmly established and eventually carried over into everyday civilian clothing. Even Napoleon's famous pose with his hand tucked inside his coat was partly due to convenience. His right hand slipped in easily. For women, the story is completely different. In the Middle Ages, and especially during the 17th to 19th centuries, wealthy ladies almost never dressed themselves. They had maids. Their dresses were incredibly complicated. Corsets, crinolines, and dozens of layers of fabric. The maid stood facing her lady. Since she was right-handed like most people, it was much easier for her when the buttons were on her right side, which meant they were on the left side of the woman's garment. Men dressed themselves, so their clothes were designed for right-hand use. Women of high society were often the ones being dressed. This difference in approach stuck around even after most women no longer had maids. Of course, there are other theories too. Some say women usually held babies on their left arm, making it easier to unbutton their blouse with the right hand. Others suggest it had to do with riding side saddle, so the wind wouldn't blow under the dress as much. Historians generally consider these secondary explanations. The main reasons are the combination of military tradition for men and the tradition of being dressed by servants for women. Interesting fact, there was no strict standard for a long time. It was only in the 19th century, with the rise of mass-produced factory clothing, that this difference became permanently fixed. Factories simply continued what was already common among the upper class. Today, it's purely tradition. A modern woman can easily button her own blouse, and a man doesn't need to carry a sword anymore. But fashion is an incredibly conservative thing. Changing a standard that's over 700 years old turned out to be harder than sending a person into space. So every day when we button up our shirts or blouses, we're quietly repeating the habits of medieval warriors and Victorian aristocrats. A tiny, everyday detail carries hundreds of years of history, social status, and practical solutions from the past. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment and let me know. Did you ever notice this difference before? And have you ever struggled buttoning someone else's shirt? Thanks for watching. See you in the next mystery of simple things. Take care.